First, my dear guests, I would love, because we are at the family, I would love if you would accept to play the game of the startup pitch. If you could come here, look at this camera there, and just, no, nice and slow, nice and slow. Yes, there is a camera. And just introduce yourself, like in a 30-second pitch, like, hi, my name is, my job is, I believe in, happy to be here with you tonight. Okay? The pitch. Henri, I feel that you are okay to do this. Welcome.
Hello, my name is Henri Verdier. I'm not the French ambassador for digital affairs, but I feel more like an entrepreneur. I started 3 companies. One of them was a success. Then I was the French chief data officer and then the French chief technological officer. So I tried a lot to modernize the public action, the government. And now I lead the digital diplomacy about everything like cybersecurity, net neutrality, all global discussion. I believe that internet was the greatest innovation of the world, of the history of humanity, and that we have now some threats, and we have to protect ourselves from cyber issues, from content manipulation, especially in election, interference within election, and to protect us from big monopolies that can kill the innovation.
Thank you, Henri. Thank you very much. It was a great pitch, and I can see that you are a founder, a startup founder. No pressure, Salwa, no pressure.
Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here with you tonight. Well, so my name is Salwa Toko. I'm first of all, I'm going to talk about my social engagement. I'm the co-founder and president of Become Tech, who is aiming to close the gender gap in IT. An NGO I started 2 years ago now, after having been experiencing some rude problems and issues on IT for the girls. And since now less than a year, I'm the president of the French Digital Council, and I do, well, follow and try to intervene in the public policies on how the digital can be more inclusive for France and how we can speak for Europe, for a better digital inclusive population for us all.
Great. We're going to go through this topic because it's really one of our focus.
My pleasure.
Thank you, Salwa. Now, you already know, but still, I want Victoria to come and to play the game. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Victoria Espinel. I'm the CEO of BSA, the Software Alliance. And I believe that any person that wants to have a software job should be able to have one, whatever their gender, whatever their race, wherever they live.
Perfect, like really sharp, straightforward. Thank you. And now, masterpiece, may I? Welcome, Cédric.
Hello everybody, my name is Cédric Villani. As a young kid, I was a shy kid, fascinated by mathematics, so I continued and became a mathematician. Made a career around the world, got a few medals, went back to France, to run an institute, work hard on the scientific culture, to hack the culture, because culture is also science and digital and all the rest. Then I took the train prepared by President candidate and then President Macron, gone into parliament to hack the parliament, because science, digital, technology, all this also is politics.
Wow, I wish I had a mathematician teacher like you, as passionate. I would have been better at mathematics. Welcome, Hind.
Thank you.
Your turn.
How can I talk after that? Amazing. So, hi, I'm Hind El Idrissi. I am the co-founder and CEO of Wemind. I'm also a member of the French Digital Council. So what I do in life is providing services for freelancers. It means if you're not an employee, I will provide everything for you so that you get the same perks as an employee, which means health insurance, housing guarantee, legal advice, legal protection, so everything you need so that you can focus on your work. Thank you.
Wow. You see, I was afraid because with so many guests, you think like, oh, a panel is going to be boring, but you see, it won't be boring, for sure. So you have 2 mics, I have some questions, you give the mics to each other. I will ask my first question to Henri, in English. Henri. Yeah, Henri. Henri, you wrote a book with my co-founder, Nicolas Collin. Yes. And in this book, you talk about a certain concept, the multitude. Okay, can you explain what is the multitude and how it can help us analyze what's happening toward the job situation?
Yes, but you did this within your introduction. With Nicolas, we think... Okay, let's start by the beginning. A century ago, it was a complete different world. Very few people were educated. We had very few information, and it was very expensive to build information or to find information. And we had no communication tools. So the bureaucratic organization was a very intelligent organization. You have few leaders thinking hard with the few information they have, and then they give order and the other obey. And we live now in a completely different world. The information is quite free. We have information everywhere. Most people are very educated. Most of the world can read and write, and in France, most of the people has a baccalaureate. And we have instant communication tools, and we can organize and reorganize ourselves. And we didn't think enough how this world is different. So first, about the job, I will speak after about multitude. Within the world, the working world, sorry, I just landed from Tokyo this morning, so I'm a bit exhausted, so my English is very bad. I'm sorry about this.
Keep your French accent, it's very cute.
Yes, my lovely French accent. So let's start with all of the organization will change, and that's why I believe in your title. All the jobs will become digital, because all organization has to become digital. And because I spent some years of my life trying to disrupt some business, and then 6 years trying to modernize public action. It's amazing how we cannot take the consequences of this situation. And to be very precise, with my former job, I tried to inject within the governmental action just agile methodologies. You know all about you know about agile methodologies.
Not everyone knows what it is.
We proved 70 times with 70 projects that 2 or 3 developers, which are authorized to change the project until the customers are happy, can make faster and better to a very, very, very lower price, but 10 or 20 times less expensive, a better product. It's fascinating, it's amazing how impactful it is to take to the developers. You have just one thing to do, the customer must be happy. And change until the customer is happy. So it was amazing, but it was quite impossible to push this within the administration, because everything within the administration fights this way of working, because we need a very important specification, and then they are not written by the product owner, they are written by other guy, and the guy who will buy the solution is a third guy, and we will control every week with an unuseful committee that takes time and money to the team, etc. And I understood that if you want to build, to work like this, you need to change everything within the organization. You need to take a post-control and not pre-control. You need to empower your team and not to control your team. You need to find different guys because we need nerds or developers, but they have to know about a customer, so they are not just developers, etc. And I know really that we will have to change the complete organization, or we will die, because as someone said, the young guys, they don't want to work in this kind of organization. So every organization has to become a digital organization, and then every job will become digital jobs. But the second part of the reflection is that, yes, you, me, everyone has a lot of data, has a lot of ambition, has want to change the world. And with Nicolas, we call this a multitude. And we took the word multitude because it's not a crowd, it's not people. It's a lot of people with a lot of agendas, with a lot of tools, which can organize themselves and change, and organize themselves and take another organization. And we have to learn to deal with this multitude. And that's very important, and I finish with this, because Nicolas wrote this today in this newsletter. Every organization has to know that now there is more intelligence and power outside the organization than within the organization. And if you cannot work with all this intelligence, with all those people, you will die. And if you have a serious look of the business model of the GAFA, of the digital economy, all of them take a lot of value to their customer. And it's not, they don't steal value. They don't steal data. They build new business model, sharing the value, but taking a lot of value, a lot of creativity, a lot of innovation, a lot of enthusiasm to the customer. And if the government, if the old companies don't learn to make like this, they will die also.
So we're really focusing with you on the government, and do you think it's like, I would turn my question then to Victoria, like, do you think that now we can be agile in startup? We need to learn how to be agile in big corporation, but can the government apply this rule also?
So I would say yes, and actually I find this really interesting. I was working on a project with the World Economic Forum on what we called Agile Governance. And so the idea that we had was, would it be possible to take the principles of Agile software development and change them, adjust them, but apply them to government decision-making and government policy-making, understanding, obviously, that making policy that affects the lives of citizens is a very, very different thing than developing software. But were there principles that governments could learn from? And our premise was yes. And I'd love to share kind of the draft of these principles we had, but we thought taking the principles of Agile, and so, for example, empowering your teams, so like, you know, breaking some of the top-down control that many government processes have, having a more participatory, inclusive process. I think having the ability to adapt, which for a government also means admitting that they may have made a wrong decision, which is a really hard thing for governments to do. So to be able to take in new data, really absorb it, and then have the courage to adjust policies based on it, I think would be, I think it's possible. It's a big, big mindset shift in terms of how government processes work, but I think it's really important.
But in the end, there are many, many parallels between entrepreneurs and public policymakers if you look at community building, like how to help communities from the bottom. And there are two different types of people making policy. Like either you stay in your technocracy, either you go on the ground, you meet people. And it's like the entrepreneur meeting the customers. Right? Maybe you can help us on this. Do you melt with the crowd and take their feedback?
It's very important to organize the mixing in all these issues. I am currently involved in trying some experiments about improving the efficiency of some institution in the department that I am, member of, that I am representing. The main thing in these issues is to organize the dialogue, the encounter, and the trust. And of course, there are many reasons why the administration would resist. And some of these reasons we've witnessed. Some people think, why would we organize this agile behavior, these new tools that will replace us, make me useless? Some local executive will think, why will I make this new organization that I will no longer have control of, that I will not know how to handle responsibility for, So there are many reasons for resisting the change. And I like to, in my book, I call all this resistance also to change, but implementation of plan, policy, whatever, the viscosity of the system. You know, viscosity is what tames down the movement. It can be a good thing. If there is agitation and a storm, you like a strong viscosity to keep things down. It can be a very despairing thing if you want to make things move. So the system, human system, has this inner viscosity that is very hard to overcome and for sure needs a lot of discussion, trust building, putting people together, etc.
I have a question for you, Hind. Because we were talking about the fact that the work has changed, and with Wemind, you meet tons of freelancers. Okay, this new generation of workers. Do you think that soon everyone will become a freelancer?
Well, I'm not sure about that, but I think that much more people will be freelancer. Maybe we can try something, a little survey in the room. So just think at where you are right now, and just tell me if you are a freelancer, an independent person, an entrepreneur right now, or if you would like to do that sometime in your life, be like a freelancer, someone independent. So raise your hand if you think that you would like to do that. Okay, thank you. So we're about 30–40% of the room, and when we do surveys on very mass scales, it's about 50% of people who would like to be a freelancer. So right now, in the whole workforce, the percentage of freelancers is only 10%. So as we see here, even in this room, it's much more than 10%. And so freelancing is really going a long way. But when we talk about freelancing, there are two types of freelancers that this digital economy is bringing. So first type of freelancer is, I don't know, the software developer. So right now, it's very rare competence, so if you're looking for a job, you're going to find it, you're going to have very high income, and things are looking great, and you can go on vacation, you can work on remote, you can be a digital nomad, and that's great. But that's only the tip of the iceberg, because when you think of this digital economy, you have two kinds of gig economy workers. First one is these high-skilled freelancers. Second type is the low-skilled freelancer. Now, if you think of a company like Uber, Uber employs a lot of high-skilled engineers, developers, and so on. But they employ much more Uber drivers who are low-skilled, have less revenue, less income, and this economy, it's not creating like the middle-class jobs that are in the middle. So we have very high income and very low income. And so that's really the thing in this economy. It's that the independent work, the freelancing, is very different from what it used to be. But the one thing that we are sure about is that it's growing and growing.
I don't want to defend Uber, but I tend to see the things in the way that how they were before. And I tend to compare it with the opportunity of the movement, you know, like, and it's really an interesting case, this one especially, because what we see in France is that many ex-Uber drivers will sue Uber because they will say, hey, I want my privilege, you know. I'm no longer a Uber driver for this or that reason, but I don't have access to the privilege that my friend who used to be employed will have. And on that topic, that's where you stand in a way with Wemind. It's how this privilege, actually, how there is a tension between being employed or not being employed, if you're a freelancer, the safety net that you can have.
Yeah, right. So there is a very big difference here in France, but like everywhere in the world, where if you work as an employee at a company, you have good safety net, you have good revenue, you have health insurance, you have a lot of things. And when you are a freelancer, you don't have all these things. So here in France, what they do, and it happens also in other countries, is that when someone gets sick or someone gets fired, that there's some issue of some kind, they say, hey, after all, I wasn't a freelancer, I was only doing the job that you were giving me. And so they say, I want to be an employee. And the thing is, if you have, and we have the situation here in France with Deliveroo, we have it with Uber and all these companies. And the thing is, if you work as a freelancer, they pay you money, but they pay less, far less than if you were an employee, because when you're an employee, there is a big safety net and you have to pay for it. So like the people of Uber and Deliveroo and so on, they say, if you force me to employ everyone, I'm just going to shut down the company because the business model doesn't work. So we have this big issue that right now the freelancers, and like all of them, they used to be employees before that, or if they weren't employees, they know some people. 90% of the population is employees, so they have that in mind, and they say, oh my God, when there is a problem, they say this is unfair to me. And that's it's beginning to create a big tension in society, and it works like for everyone, because it's something that is unfair. When something happens to you in life, and you see that if you were an employee, you would have all kinds of protections, but now you're sick and you can't go to work and you can't allow to pay your rent and everything. And so people feel that it's very unfair. So like, what we have to do now is rethink how it all works, how the safety net works. And we at Wemind, we do that for freelancers. And at Wemind, we have freelancers that are the high-skilled. We don't do the low skill because it would be too expensive for them. So we need government regulation to rethink all that, because it's not going to be only the private sector cannot do it alone.
All right, and that's the topic of the book of my co-founder, Edge. Anyway, it's another topic. Salwa, I would like to ask you a question, because as you're working at the Conseil National du Numérique, National Council, Digital National Council, French Digital National Council. You advise the government.
I volunteer. I do not work. I volunteer.
All right, all right. It's all based on the goodwill. And so you advise the government on what they should do.
Well, I try to.
I try to. And what concretely do you give them as things that they should implement to adapt to today's transformation regarding the jobs, regarding the work?
Well, it's a tough word. Really, really tough work. Well, I'm not the only one to decide. We are 30 members, and Hind is one of the members with me. The thing that I'm sorry, I'm going to stand up because I've got a little bit of problem with my sciatic nerve.
It's good, it's good.
I'm sorry. Well, in fact, the French Digital Council have been created less than 10 years ago to try to advise government institutions on how we have to have really in mind when you are creating public policies, how the digital is transforming everything. So it can be a matter of economic problems, social issues, education, gender, and so on. We've been working with a lot of ministers, in fact, and we try to advise them and just to try to follow them and try to guide them. So we are independent. But nevertheless, we try to follow them because, as Henri said, it's very tough to change a state, institutions, and governments. It's tough because it's tough to change human being. Let's be just fair, okay? Well, it's almost impossible when you just look at the picture, okay, the global picture, and said, okay, no way, we're not going to do this. But this is where experimentations are very helpful, and Henri knows that. He launches a lot of experimentation inside the government, inside institutions, try to move things on, and I like the viscosity. I like this image. It's totally this. What we have in mind and what you should understand is it's not only changing and transforming. It's not only changing and transforming things, okay? It's changing mindsets. It's changing a way we were used to. And this is very tough, and we have to be very careful in the manner we do it. For instance, and for example, here in France, okay, we are all, as we'll say, maybe a kind of digital native. I don't like the word because we are not born with digital native skills. Okay, we learn them quickly, maybe. But we have more absence, okay, with digital right now here in this room. This is not really the same thing for all the population in France and in the world. Okay, we have more than 50,000 million persons here in France that have got a real problem. Okay, by using tools, using digital tools, and expressing their own citizenship. So if we are not aware of how we can help them to understand how they can use those digital tools and use the mindset of what the digital means for their life and for intimacy life, yeah, we're going to create a lot of tension. And I think that is a problem where it happened with Uber, for example. Nobody explained to all those people who have low skills, who want to go Uber driver, that they will not have, I will not say really privilege, because a lot of people fight for what all people not from France says it's privilege, but it's our social pact. So nobody told them, to the driver, that they are not going to benefit this social pact. Okay, and that's a problem. And I think that's a problem of how we educate to understand what the digital world is changing and transforming. So it's important, I think it's important to really focus on this, to make people understand what it means. Maybe we'll have to change our social pact. Okay, maybe we'll have to do it. But how are we going to do it not to exclude anyone? Because they will cost much more, really much more, as it costs now, to include those people after than if we think how we include them just right now. And this is one type of advice we're trying to have to do and to give to the government.
Great. Thank you very much, Salwa. I would like to ask you, Cédric, because I'm switching to another topic, which is education and training. Yes. And I would like to ask you, like, regarding AI, okay, I know that you in your report there is a huge part dedicated on education. Can you please tell us how the government and the parliament can help prepare the workforce? If you have some relevant public initiatives that you would like to share with us.
About education.
Yeah.
Yes. Education is at the same time the mother of all battles and the real difficult thing to set up. Because it's all about ecosystem, environment, it's all about people, meeting people in the right conditions, and that is so difficult to organize. And in France, we have to admit there is this globally shared false idea that it all depends on the curriculum. Curriculum is one thing, but if you think it will save the education, you're damn wrong. And at the same time, you have to think about what's the curriculum, how you train the teachers, how you find the people who train the teachers, how you evaluate the teachers regularly, how you evaluate the atmosphere within the teaching, within the schools and so on. And this is a whole an enormous thing. In 1 year, you can set up a good curriculum if you're good and a good team. But setting up the good human architecture requires a number of years. I would say at least 5. So there is here this these two curses about number in education. First curse is the time scale. Gosh, one teacher that is not well trained will spend 40 years providing teaching that is not well adapted. Make the numbers about how many kids this will correspond to. And the second curse is about the number of people. If you are, from the government point of view, whenever you think of an education solution, you have to think about a solution that will work for millions of people. That is a huge difficulty. Experiments in small groups often will work fine with dedicated teachers, dedicated students, all excited to be on a, experimental program about learning AI or whatever. But your solution may not go to the scale that is 1 million. That is an enormous difficulty. Recently, I would say, we won a few battles. I say we, let's say the people who are very much aware how it's important that our kids get acquainted with the basics of programming and the digital stakes in the world. The idea that there would be courses of mathematics that is rather demanding and courses of general scientific culture with mathematics inside it, so that our kids, when they are out of high school, some of them have very good training in math, but all of them have a good understanding of what mathematics brings into society. Second battle that we won, the national education decided that there would be a course in algorithmics for everybody. It will take some time to put, but the minister made some definite commitment to this and started by setting up the diploma for teachers about this. And it will be a hard battle to set up in practice, in particular because our first reservoir of algorithmic teachers will be math teachers that will be trained for that. And math teachers, we barely have enough to cover the needs. It has become a rare material worldwide. So we will have to handle this kind of default and human material that will be, but it will be extremely important. And the third battle that we won is the principle that there would be some course about, in the future, some course about explaining the principles of algorithmic for everybody also. Because even if you're not a mathematician, you should have had some training, some initiation of what is coding, and some initiation of what are the big current social, political, economical stakes associated with algorithmic and digital.
Thank you very much. Victoria, I have a question regarding the skills that we need to work on, because recently in the policy agenda that BSA released, you are really focusing on these skills, and in France also you're focusing on France. What should we learn? What do we need to work on?
So I think it will vary depending upon the kind of job that you want to have, and that's one of the things that makes this issue complicated and difficult to scale. So on the one hand, I think, as I said, we need more coders and software engineers, so people that have multiple years of technical training. But at the same time, I think it's really important, and Cédric was referring to this, I think even for people that are not going to be software engineers, they're not going to be coders, they're not going to be developers, having some amount of familiarity with coding, I think is really important. Having an understanding of the principles of algorithms is really important. I know I'm a lawyer by training. At the school where I went to, they've now started, every law student coming in has to take coding, because they feel like it's going to have such a big impact on policy and law, so they want them, even though probably very few of them would ever become software engineers, they want them to understand the basics of it. And so I think it's a variety of skills, but the ability to scale those programs is really difficult.
All right, we have to say goodbye to our
I'm
dear
sorry,
Cédric.
it's very rude to interrupt my neighbor, and such an honor to meet such a great person. My friends, I need to rush for another speech that I will give. It will be the 17th appointment of my day. It has been a great pleasure to be part for this evening of the family. I believe in this time of great national debate that the virtues of public discussion have never been so apparent, and whenever we forgot this principle, we headed right into the wall. So discussion is one of the bases of society that we always have to remember. And please continue. My friends, good evening.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. We'll keep on discussing. We'll keep on having this conversation. All right.
I think there's a variety of skills, but I think it's important for everyone to have a baseline, and then it's also important that there are really accessible opportunities for people that want to get further technical skills.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Henri, I have a question. No way, Henri. You are looking at your phone?
My daughter.
Oh, come on.
She didn't see me this morning.
Okay, Henri. You've been in charge of the digitalization of the state, okay? I just want you to give me some concrete example of how civil servants have implemented some changes through you.
So I have a magic recipe, very simple. So I will share my recipe, but I want to share some ideas with the other speakers very briefly. First, if Cédric is true, and I think he is true, if you need 5 years to teach teachers and to build a teaching program, in the digital economy we have a disruption every 3 years. So we will have a huge problem. And that's why we have to make connection with the multitude. About every disruption, the first knowledge comes from what we call autodidact, or entrepreneurs, or self-made men, etc. It's impossible to train public servants about a new disruption every 3 years. And that's very, very, very important. So, and one of our programs was what we called Entrepreneur d'intérêt général, but it was inspired by the presidential fellow from President Obama. So every year we ask candidacy to disruptive guys, startuppers, researchers, etc. A lot of them come from NGOs, from Wikipedia, OpenStreetMap, etc. So that was one answer. The second point about the mindset, that's the biggest point. And I would love to share with you a very small story. I love this story. 3 years ago, we were summoned by the chief of staff of the Prime Minister. You remember Véronique Bédague? So she was a woman very impressive, very, very impressive. And it was at the Prime Minister's office. And I was with the head of the incubateur de Startup d'État, State Startups Incubator. She was 27 years old. So the very impressive woman told us, I have an idea. You will do this application, and it will make this, and this, and this, and this. And Ella, her name is Ella, said, oh, it seems to be a good idea. I will test this, and I will tell you if it's a good idea. Very simple, and it was the agile methodology. It was no insubordination. It was a way to do, but nobody never tells this to the chief of staff of the Prime Minister. Oh, it seems to be a good idea. I will test it, and I will come back. And here is a
humbling experience, we say.
Yes, humble. It was humble. Okay, yes, I will try. Maybe it's a good idea. We'll see. Okay. So about your question, for me, the magic recipe is quite simple. Find and empower your entrepreneurs. In every organization, in every administration, you have people that think and act like entrepreneurs. They are able, and we have a magic recipe to find them. We ask to the CEO, to the boss, to the chair, to write a very simple letter. He has to write to the complete organization And he say, if you find a recurrent
pattern?
irritant.
Irritating.
If you have a digital strategy to resolve this, it's not just about much more money or I don't know, a digital strategy to resolve the problem. And if you are able to take the project and do it yourself, okay, I give you 2 developers and we start. And that's how we made 70 projects.
Someone who wants to take responsibilities, to take ownership.
Yes, to take the so he has to. He is within the organization, maybe a very low grade guy. He has a good idea, digital idea, and he takes the ownership. And if you want just a concrete example, a project I love. So this guy was working at the unemployment agency, Pôle Emploi, and he told us every day and sometimes every week, I had people looking for a job, and I have to say, sorry, I don't have nothing for you. It's not a good life, nor for the public servant or for the job researcher. And he said, I know that some companies hire, but I don't know where. Can you make big data and predict companies that will hire? So it was quite simple. In 2 weeks, we made a predictive model, and with an accuracy of 85%. So we are able to say, within those 3 companies in your city, one of them will hire someone in your job with a 85% probability. And after this, and because with Eric Barthelemy, this entrepreneur, we had to invent a new relation at the office, because the difficulty was not to make the algorithm, it was to change the situation. Because at the beginning, the public servant was like this. I will see if I have something, no, okay, ask me back next week. And now he has to be helpful to say, hey, we will try to find a new, I'm not sure, but maybe it's possible, let's try to make a spontaneous conversation. So today, we proved that the people who use this tool have take a new job with 20% more than without the tool. So it's amazing. And 2, about 3 agents of the unemployment agency use this every week. It was just the idea of one guy in Morange, in Lorraine, so very far from the center, very far from the boss. It was a real entrepreneur. So the magic recipe is find your... Look for an innovator, not for an innovation, and help the innovator. And the innovation don't matter, the innovator matter.
Humility, consistency, and creating the opportunity for the entrepreneur inside to be able to take ownership. Thank you for that. Salwa, tell me about your focus on girls, because I have seen that you are really pushing hard on promoting STEAM education for girls. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like, why is it so important, and why we don't have good news right now?
So, why is it important? That's a weird question.
Yeah, you gave me some figures last time we were on the phone.
That's a really weird question. Well, is it important to think about the half population of the world? I'm just asking. Yeah, this is the problem. It's the figures in France are really not good. We have less than 10% of women entrepreneurs in IT in France. In companies, there are less than 6% as coders. And in college and university, there are now less than 10%. And the problem is that those numbers were not that bad at the beginning of the 80s. That's one of the problems. And another problem, another issue for me is that computer science, okay, what burned with ladies? I'm sorry, guys. But ladies were at the head of computer science. So it's a problem. We've been talking about, okay, how the jobs are evolving, how world is evolving because of technology, because of digital science. And what I call inclusive society is to include all genders. when you have a population of women who are not, I won't say not allowed, but who are not pushed to pursue career in computer science, to pursue to get some skills, those skills that Victoria just talked us about it, how are they going to be really employed in the future, in those new jobs, new activities? Are we going to create a lot of discrimination, much more, only for women? I'm not there is just fair. Maybe we should have an AI just measuring how bad impact it will be on our world and our Occidental world mostly if we do not try to include more women and try to help them to understand that having computer skills, digital skills, is one of the best way to disrupt the world and to participate to create the new world. And this is why I committed to in this engagement 5-6 years ago now. I do it in very little with very little groups because I don't have the possibility to do it, to scale it really at the state level or the European level. But the figures I just told you at the beginning, they are quite similar in all Europe, in the United States and in Australia. You don't have really the same numbers in Africa or in Asia because the discrimination issues are not quite the same of what we do live here in our Occidental world.
All right. Yeah, I get it. Thank you. Victoria, also with Girls Who Code, you've been involved in this. What's your view on this? Like, how can we really help the girls choose this specific path?
If they want to. So, look, we have a similar unfortunate story in the United States. So, in 1984, 34% of computer science engineer graduates were female. That was roughly equivalent in law and medicine. About a third were female. In the time that has passed, in the few decades since then, in law and medicine, we're about 50-50. But in computer science, we've actually gone backwards in the United States. So we were at 34%, now we're at 18%. And it is an interesting phenomena, I think, that as computer science jobs have become, as the numbers have increased and as the salaries have increased, we've had this phenomenon of having less women in the field. I think there are a number of reasons for that, but one of the reasons is because there's, I think, become this narrative that technology jobs are not jobs for women, and they are also tend to cluster in particular parts of the United States or particularly affluent parts of the world. So I think in gender and in other groups there's this view that technology jobs are not really a viable job path for them. And so I think there are funding, there's resources issues, but a big part of it is changing the cultural narrative that exists in the United States, in Europe, and you know, I travel around the world talking about this problem, and it is that cultural narrative problem exists not in every country, but it is a very widespread and unfortunate phenomenon.
It's crazy. We started by talking about the mindset. We're ending talking about the narrative. So it's not, in the end, about technology itself. It's really about what we put in it and our beliefs. I would like you to have the final word, okay? And I was wondering, is freelancing a way to overcome the biases? May they be gender biases or regarding where you come from, you know? Like, do people choose freelancing to escape from this kind of judgmental behaviors?
We're talking really about women here. So I would say no, it's really quite the opposite. Because as you mentioned, tech jobs are harder to get for women. That's one obstacle. Now the second obstacle is that when you're self-employed, that's a second obstacle because women are more afraid of that kind of choice and that they don't really do it. And when they do it, it's really in more creative jobs like marketing, communication, but not tech job, not developer software. But I wanted to say something that's that I've noticed and that's quite great regarding like moving the social ladder, you know, is that we have some people who didn't do well at school, or who have like a name like me, who is not really French, and then when you send your CV, your curriculum, and then it says, and they say where you grow up, and they say, oh my God, I'm not going to employ that person. But when you're a freelancer and you have a very rare competence and a very rare skill, and you're from these neighborhoods where it's not easy to find a job, then you can say, hey, I'm a freelancer and I'm very good at what I'm doing, and I wear whatever I like, I come to work, I work on remote, and then, but this is my rate, you know, and you have to pay me this if you want me to freelance for you. So that's really great, because you have really people that are going this way. And one thing that I'm really sure about, that I see every day in our community, is that people who are freelancers are oftentimes much happier than those who are not. So there's some good things.
All right. Thank you very much to everyone. I know we are like 20 minutes late. Oh my God, this is totally French. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you've learned some stuff. I hope you're gonna stay here and you're gonna network. Maybe you want to ask them some questions. Maybe they will have time. I hope so. If you can stay a little bit, we have some wine. It was a pleasure. We didn't define the future of work, basically. We just gave you some food for thought. And I hope that you will be the actors who will make and create the future of work. Okay, thank you very much.
Que l'enfant